sixthreezero Bike Company does not carry BMX bikes, and that is not by coincidence, that's strategic. We at sixthreezero are a comfort-focused bike company, and BMX, just by their basic design and nature, are not designed for comfort. They are designed for certain other aspects of riding, mainly tricks, or putting people on pegs to ride on the back. A lot of younger riders like BMX because they're easily maneuverable. You could pop wheelies easier, which we don't condone that here. But things of that nature. Our rider and the bikes we develop are more focused on how do we take pain away while riding? How do we get people in the most comfortable position so when they get off their bike, they don't feel the residual pain effects from having just taken a nice long bike ride? The way BMX differs from the bikes we offer at sixthreezero kind of varies segment to segment. At sixthreezero, we focus really on a few very niche segments. Number one, comfort bikes, which also kind of blends with comfort and city bikes. We have a heavy emphasis in cruiser bikes, and we're now getting more into hybrid and commuter bikes, which commuter bikes are also a part of hybrid bikes. The way, starting with comfort bikes, the way comfort really differs from BMX is mostly about the frame size. So frame size and riding position. A BMX bike is a very small frame, and it's designed to be small for the agility of really using it to go off of jumps and perform tricks. Typically, when you see BMX riders, you know BMX as a sport. And those guys are riding over dirt mounds, riding on dirt trails, jumping, things of that nature. So for that kind of activity, you want a bike that's going to be lighter, more ability to go through the air. You could whip it around much easier. When you compare that to, say, a comfort bike, you really don't care about the agility of the bike, so to speak. In fact, for a comfort bike, if it's heavy or not, doesn't really matter to the rider unless you're trying to ride fast or carry it upstairs or something. What you're most concerned about on the comfort side is the positioning of the rider and also shock absorption. So a difference between a BMX and a comfort bike is a lot of times on a comfort bike you'll see a front fork with a shock that allows for the bike to go up and down and really absorb the bumps. You would never see that on a BMX bike. Another difference is going to be between the riding position. In a BMX bike, the rider is going to be very low and hunched over, and how the bike affects your back and your knees is not really of concern in the BMX category. Whereas in the comfort category, you're going to make sure that that frame puts the rider in an upright position. Their back is back, their arms are nice and out in front of them, and it's really going to relieve as much pressure off of their joints as possible. So I would say, generally speaking, riders over the age of 40, it would not be ideal to be riding a BMX bike. Unless, of course, you still want to be out there jumping dirt trails and getting crazy, things like that, then by all means, pick up a BMX, have some fun. Looking at how a BMX compares to a cruiser bike, it's very similar to a comfort bike. The difference between a cruiser bike is typically you don't see the kind of shock absorption you get on a comfort bike. Typically cruisers are more about style and riding position. And when you look at a BMX, a big difference between a cruiser and a BMX is going to be the handlebars. On a BMX bike, you want to see straight bars right out in front of the rider's body, to be very mobile. So it keeps the arms in a more tense position on a BMX because those guys are trying to turn quick and really be mobile, and so you need the handlebars right out in front of you. When you're looking at a cruiser, the handlebars are way bigger and your arms are a little bit wider, and it's kind of a more slower turning position, and your arms are not in a position that's conducive to quick turns. I would compare it almost to the steering wheel of a Porsche versus the steering wheel of a bus. And when you see someone driving a Porsche, the steering wheel is much tighter, much smaller, and the hands are right here. When you talk about driving a bus, you talk about a big steering wheel. It turns a lot slower. The bus driver's in a much more comfortable position. It's kind of the similar comparison to a cruiser and a BMX. Looking at hybrid bikes compared to BMX, now the hybrid bike category, it can kind of run the gamut in terms of what kind of bike is actually incorporated into the hybrid bike category. And even as an expert in the bike category, it's sometimes a blurred line of actually what's a hybrid bike, what's not a hybrid bike. Essentially anything that can't be classified as a cruiser or a road bike or a mountain bike or a comfort bike kind of falls into this hybrid category. And it's usually bikes that kind of take bits and pieces from other genres and then mixes it all together. So you might have on a hybrid bike tires that are very similar to cruisers, but you may have handlebars that are very similar to a BMX. So when we're comparing a hybrid bike to a BMX bike, it's a very difficult comparison. One hybrid bike may have similar handlebars to a BMX bike. However, the riding position may be more similar to a comfort bike. It kind of depends on what niche you're specifically looking for. As an example, let's say you are a leisurely rider who has back pain and you still want to ride on trails and pavement and you want to go fast, but you want to make sure your back's upright. So you may opt for a hybrid bike that has an upright riding position, but a more aggressive handlebar because you still want to turn fast and go fast as you go down the hills. So there's a lot of different hybrid bikes that fill a lot of different niche riding types, or riding circumstances, basically. If you're gonna ride on a trail, or if you're gonna ride down the street, if you're gonna ride over a lot of curbs, things of that nature. If you're gonna do very standard riding, you could stick to a bike in a very specific category, so to speak. And so, yeah, and I mentioned commuter bikes and things like that. I mean, that falls under hybrid. I would say when looking at that compared to BMX bikes, there's not a lot of similarity. I think the biggest difference between like a commuter bike and a BMX would be the tire size. Again, BMX bikes are designed not necessarily for speed. The wheels are very small, so they're designed more for a combination of, again, mobility, agility. So making the tire small enough that a rider could maneuver it in the air or over jumps or over tracks while still allowing them to go fast. However, when you increase the tire size, it's going to allow you to go much faster, but a larger tire size wouldn't be conducive to BMX because BMX riders, again, they want to go over jumps, they want to do things like that, and having a 26-inch tire versus a 20-inch tire would make the jumps and the tricks way more difficult. So, and I think when you look at BMX compared to all the bikes, the number one difference between an adult BMX bike and an adult bike in any other category is tire size. A BMX bike is going to typically, for adults, have a 20-inch tire. For an adult bike in any other category, I would say the minimum tire size typically is 24-inch. So you can see already how much smaller a BMX bike is going to be in the adult category versus adult bikes in any other genre of bikes. The way we can help someone at 630 who's looking for a BMX bike is we can first try to identify, is a BMX bike really the right bike for them? So there's a couple major buzzwords in the biking industry. I think BMX, road, and mountain bike are sort of the three words that people know when they think bikes. And I think a lot of people walk in and they say, I want a BMX bike. And that, to me, BMX is really not the right bike category for most people. Especially, recreational riders. If you just want to ride around town and you're concerned with ease, BMX wouldn't be a good choice. So I think other than the fact that a lot of people know BMX and they may like the look of it, I'd first want to dig a little deeper to understand what are their actual needs and what's their use case for this bike. And I would say with BMX, the needs and the use cases are very, very specific. For younger riders, if a younger rider is looking for a BMX and they have a very specific need of, I want to go off jumps and I want to do tricks, I would basically back away and say, we're definitely not the right company to guide you on that. So if right away I asked, this potential rider the question of, what do you want to do with your BMX? And they said, I want to go crazy big air and do fun things. I'd say, okay, great. You need to go to another bike brand and talk to them about it because we can't help you. But if they said, I'm just looking to ride around town, and if they told me they're just looking to ride around town and they said they want a BMX, I would say, let me show you something else in the comfort cruiser or hybrid category that I think may suit you a little better. Especially, and I would want to ask a little bit more about their body pain and, how many miles do they want to ride? How hard do they want the riding to be? What kind of maintenance, safety, things of that nature. So once I could answer a lot of those questions, if at the end of it, everything still leads me back to BMX, my final answer would be, okay, it does seem like you need a BMX, and I'd be happy to find you an expert in that field to get you the right bike.